I'm Jane Hanson. This week in the arena, we're tackling some of the topics and current events that has everyone talking about. And our in-studio guest, Robert Bobby Muniz, president of Code Blue Building Consultants, a 9/11 hero who was working construction near Ground Zero on September 11th, 2001. Plus, our regular contributor, Grant Galicio, associate editor of Commonweal Magazine. Thank you all for being here. Bobby, let's start with you.
Sure.
This killing of Osama bin Laden must have struck very close to home because you actually witnessed what happened on September 11th.
Well, when I heard about it, that had occurred, as far as my feelings and reaction, I was actually very content and very happy that happened. Finally, they got a terrorist out there that was the #1 most wanted, and I had a feeling that they end up a lot of family with closure. And so as myself.
Well, so you, because you're there, but for maybe a few steps or a few something, you could have easily been one of the victims.
Yes, as a matter of fact, when that occurred, when I was down there, I was working at the Federal Reserve building, and we're doing renovation. I think the top, 5 floors, and when the first plane hit, I went over there, but also I used to go inside that building like 6 o'clock in the morning because we had another crew on the North Tower. I'm sure that it was on the 76th story, I think more or less where the plane had hit. And me coming in late, actually I would have been one of them.
Another one of those stories that if by chance.
Right.
How much do you think God played in keeping you safe that day?
Well, I started making a right, I made a left.
Yeah.
You know, more so to speak in that sense. But the whole communication had went down. I tried to get them on the cell phone. At that time, we had the Nextel with 2-way radios. There were like local 3 electricians and also 157 union workers. They were out there, and I think they were one of the first that got killed.
Were they really? So this is part of your crew?
Right, it is. I was a union worker, on and off for about 30 years.
So you're physically okay?
So far, I get monitored every 2 years by Mount Sinai. That was like a mandatory, you know, for what happened in Ground Zero. And so far, they see nothing wrong. Thank God for that.
You know, I was down at Ground Zero the day after Osama bin Laden had been killed, and there was this real sense of elation and of celebration. But I found that inside of me, having been a journalist on the scene back then, almost 10 years ago, I felt like all these, the reawakening of those feelings of horror and loss and sorrow and fear. It's as if all of a sudden something I'd put a cap on just opened up again.
Actually, when I was in there, they couldn't get me out of Ground Zero. And I stood there and I seen things that I would not wish anybody to see. People jumping off the World Trade Center. Willingly, they would hold their hand, they would just jump off. And I think it was one part that I seen Father Michael Judge, when the body just came down and actually caused his death. The jet fuel went down the elevator shaft and just actually blew the lobby up in one part. It was devastating.
One of the things I know you were a hero that day, that you saved people's lives, that you carried them to safety.
I actually, when the building was coming down, and because at that point, nobody knew that the building was actually going to come down. The firefighters, police officers, nobody. So when the roar started taking place, and you know, you just hear a big roar, nobody knew. I mean, it was really loud, like if there was a turbine engine right next to you. But you don't know what's going on. And then when the building started coming down and all the pieces of that building was going everywhere, everybody ran for panic. Out of panic, they just ran, and there was actually people falling down in the street, and I ran over there, picked them up, and put them for the next doorway, and try to get them out of there, because usually what I do with construction and safety and protection, make sure that nobody gets hurt. And that's actually, it was unbelievable. I've seen people getting stepped on as they were running. I mean, not that they're meaning to do that, but when it comes to a sense of panic, people just running their life, they don't see anything else.
Monsignor, I know that I just want to say first that
Sure.
Bobby then went down and worked for 11 months helping clean up the construction site, or help clean up the devastation. And Monsignor, you were there because you were physically at the morgue area with anointing the dead.
It was a time where a lot of priests throughout our diocese, throughout the city, would be all over, making sure that they were tending to the spiritual, to the emotional needs of the people who were the rescue workers. My responsibility was to go to anoint the body parts as they came to the morgue, and it was a very, very emotional. Very, very emotional experience. A lot of priests would go with the families of victims as the fire department would take them to Ground Zero and journey with them as they would go through. So, you know, you're right in saying that this was not just a single day event, right? It went for months. And if you remember in the city, there was a hush that fell over the entire city from about September to December, where you would never even hear the beeping of a horn.
Right, that's
true. It was a moment where there was just this deep reflection that was taking place in the city.
And profound sadness.
Yeah.
I guess the question then, I referred earlier to the elation I saw right after Osama bin Laden had been killed. Is it, I mean, when you're there every day, you want to be shaking your fist at that guy,
right,
and you're watching the terrible wounds. Is it okay to feel good about somebody being killed?
The celebration, I think, really is really due to President Obama, that he was an extraordinarily patient man. Prosecuted this war on terror in a way that is very similar to President Bush. But what I think is striking is that he sent a SEAL team in. Right, he could have just bombed the compound, but he took the extraordinary action, a real courageous decision, to send his SEAL team in and to kill Osama bin Laden and extract his body. I thought it was really remarkable.
My opinion is that as far as bin Laden, I think a lot of family has closure throughout this event.
Yeah.
And I don't wish nobody dead, you know, as a Christian myself, you know, and celebration has closure and families, and they caught, so to speak, the bad guy.
Yeah.
I am more content than anything. What's going to come out of it, as far as Obama, what he did in 3 years, what other president could do in 7, did a great job.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you for sharing your story.
Of
Thank you
course.
for your heroic action on that day.
You're quite welcome.
And God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.